And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host today, Derek Havens, and joining me as always is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the NFL Combine beginning at Indy, Elliott Wolf's comments, continuing our discussion about the Patriots Dynasty documentary that aired episodes 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6 will be released tomorrow, and a couple other Patriots topics. We got a lot to talk about because there are no slow days even in February, Steve. How we doing today, bud?
We're doing great. It's true. I mean, I was on a podcast with Mike Diabate, our mutual friend, yesterday, and we were talking about how there's never a dull day in Foxborough, and this year especially. I mean, it seems like there's stuff to talk about every single day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much to talk about. And obviously, in years past when the team was really successful and you're kind of, you're driving your season in February, well, obviously there's more to talk about because there's more games played and drama and things like that. This offseason, it's much different. Obviously, the team's coming off a really bad year, worst year in, 20 years. And or however long, 30 years. It's been a while. And then you obviously have this regime change. Okay. And that's what all the conversation, or at least the beginning of this podcast, is going to be about, Steve, which is going to be the regime change for the Patriots and some of the comments coming from the top. Right before we jump into this, though, I just want to mention, everyone, please subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keep us high in the podcast rankings for other Patriots fans to find us. Let's talk about Elliott Wolf comments, Steve. I mean, there's really a lot of different, really kind of nits to pick, but some really interesting things. I thought the story about him being 10 years old at the Combine with Bill Parcells and Al Davis, and his father was awesome. I was like, geez, I mean, this guy has been in the NFL world his whole life. He grew up in it, basically. And obviously, there's a lot of parallels between what he wants to do and what he's implementing about doing from the kind of Packers organization that he wants to bring here. And I think there's a lot of things that I like about it, a couple of things that I don't. But I want to get your opening thoughts on Elliott Wolf and what he had to say.
Well, the thing about the Packers is they like to build through the draft, which is never a bad thing.
Never.
If you're drafting well, I should put that caveat in there, but it's never a bad thing to build through the draft. And what I like most about their system is they play the younger guys right off the bat. And they want them to get experience, early in their careers. Whereas with Bill relied on veterans and he eased the rookies in there. And when you're on top like the Patriots were for so many years, there's less and less spots, obviously, for the rookies to break through. So that's why it worked for the team back then. So, but I like the fact that, he's definitely going to play the younger players. He's already mentioned that. And the other intriguing thing, I think, is how the draft grading system is going to now work, because, the Patriots always drafted players by what role they're going to fill. And, we had a copy of their, I guess, you could say it was like a draft checklist of how players fit. And we use that in, our own draft analysis when we'd look at certain players, how they're going to fit, who would they possibly replace? Where does the team see them in maybe year 2 or 3? What will his role be, moving forward? So that's all going to change. And what Wolf said, and I'll read his quote here. We changed the grading system. It's a little bit more similar to what we did in Green Bay. The previous Patriot system was more of, this is what the role is, and this is the kind of, and their new system is value-based. So it makes it easier for the scouts to rate guys and put them in a stack of guys, as he says, this guy is the best, this guy is the worst, and everything else falls in between. So
yeah, there's so many different directions to go with this. Let's start with the draft stuff. So let's start with the draft because it is kind of draft season. It is NFL Combine week. You know, agents and front office guys and team reporters are just rubbing each other dry down there in Indy right now with all the rumors going on. And I mean, I think the weirdest thing about the draft right now, Steve, for me, and we talked about this the other day on the phone, we used to go into the draft and be like, oh, this guy's a prototypical Patriot. Like, we knew what Bill kind of liked and valued, and we don't know that right now, which is weird. Like, you used to see someone and you were like, this guy's a Brendan Schooler's a core special teams player in Texas, and looks like he's gonna be one of the next best special teamers in the league. This is a shoo-in for the Patriots. Undrafted, signed, perfect, done. I think that the idea we don't know what that is right now, for me, is gonna make, I think, this draft the most interesting, for a lot of different reasons, in quite a while. I mean, aside from the obvious fact that they're picking super high, right? But now we got to kind of see how they want to build the team. There's also the best player available element too, which, you're talking about the grading system of how they evaluate players, how they rank their players, assess things. There's also the best player available thing, which is, hey, we don't necessarily need a linebacker. I don't, hypothetically, whatever position.
Right.
But this guy's too good to pass up. We're going to take him. So that, to me, I find fascinating. How will that change? Whatever. But I mean, give me your thoughts on the new kind of, I guess, way they're going to draft in your mind.
Well, and again, I mean, if you look at the Packers through the years, they've had some very, very good drafts, and they've developed players, and I just kind of look at this and look, I'm speaking just for myself here, but a lot of us didn't want to see Bill go. But now that they've made that change, regardless of whether you're for it or against it, you have to embrace it, because this is reality, right? So right. Bill isn't coming back through that door. So now you have to embrace the change and see what they can bring to the table. I think his, the model that he's using is one that works, and, we'll have to see how he does it. But I'm pretty excited because, again, here's one of his quotes. I think there's going to be a little bit more reliance on playing younger players. I think it's really important to play young players and develop from within. And so that makes me excited that they're going to draft guys that they feel can step right in on day one and play. And, there's obviously going to be growing pains associated with that, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. I don't mind that at all. And I just look at this, I'm kind of excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
And, I think, and he's making all the right sounds as to, who's going to be the GM. Right now,
he flat out said that someone has to make a decision. He said it's going to be collaborative, which is, by the way, we're going to be absolutely hammered playing my new drinking game that every single time they say collaborative, we're just taking shots, and
yes,
it's going to be a long draft night. But I'm telling you, I feel, man, I think the drafting development portion is really, really important. I mean, and the bottom line is, Steve, is that, and they can't, they can say all the right things, but the results are going to be the results, and they're going to have to go ahead and make the right decisions. Bill drafted really well, really well. Or he inherited a lot of talent when he took over the team. It was just not, the talent hadn't yet really realized and developed. And I always thought Bill did a great job developing guys. I thought the issue with Bill towards the end of his, I guess, tenure, was he stopped drafting well towards the end. I guess he stopped drafting well, specifically early. But I thought where the issues that have been the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years is they've had problems, retaining the guys that they develop. And how many good players have we seen go get paid by other teams? And I understand that, every team is run like a business and there's checks and balances, and, they have to make sure that they're not spending too much in certain areas. But I mean, you look at what the Packers have done, and I know Elliott wasn't a part of this, but look at the Packers right now and look at how they built this team. It's the youngest team to ever win a playoff game. A lot of their guys they drafted are, they drafted that are really making plays, and that's why they're kind of coming together. And I think that I'm hoping that the Patriots can get back to having some success in the draft, because that, to me, and we've talked about this before, the draft is ultimately the biggest key to NFL success in my mind, because it's about the lifeblood of the franchise and continuously putting out talent through the pipeline. They talk about I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because there's so many things to talk about, but it's like they're talking about wanting to play young players and developing these guys and building a foundation. They called Mike Onwenu kind of a foundational piece of the organization. I thought that was nice to hear. I understand and respected Bill, and I'm not comparing. I am comparing the two and talking about the differences. I'm not necessarily saying that one is for sure better than the other. I'm not saying that at all. I thought Bill did a good job of kind of treating everybody the same, but I also think it's important, especially in today's league, where you should give praise out to guys, and calling someone like Mike Onwenu, that kind of a piece to me, Steve, I thought was kind of interesting, because it was like, hey, no, we value this guy. This guy is a great player and he plays for us and we want to keep him around. We see him as a core piece moving forward. I thought that was really cool and really important. And I think right now, we talked about this the other day on the phone, and I'm sorry for the ranting, but I mean, I had too much coffee, I suppose. We talked about this on the phone the other day, where they haven't really kept these guys in the building, and I think that they're really trying to focus on doing that now. And I just really love to see it. It was like music to my ears, because Bill did so many things so well, but I thought that towards the end, that's really where the issues started to happen. Some draft misses, and then trying to make up for it. I thought 2020 was kind of a direct result of that, and they just didn't have enough in the pipeline to get back where to go. And then guys were getting old, and Brady left, and then that fell apart. And I think they really need to start kind of developing guys from the ground floor up. And right now, is the most critical offseason we've seen in, like I said, probably 30 years.
Yeah, and again, I mean, Bill went with veterans. That was his thing, because he trusted veterans more than the rookies. And, when you have a veteran team, you have to be really good at plugging and playing, other guys. When one guy starts to show his age a little bit, you have to plug another guy in there. And he was so good at that for so long.
Yeah.
And, they've had some misses with some of their free agents, but they had some hits too. Even just this past year, I thought the signing of Ezekiel Elliott was a big hit for them.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we talked about that the other day too.
Yeah, and
we got Russ chiming in, by the way. Count me out on the Packer way. It is the New England Crafts. Oh man.
Yeah, Russ.
I think so.
Yeah. Russ told me in no uncertain terms the other day that he believes that the Crafts are going to take on the role of Jerry Jones and be more involved.
I think typical for us, I just think I don't disagree with the take. I just think it's a little strong. I just think it's a little strong, which is funny because I'm the exact same way. We're both a little bit of extremists sometimes, but I do agree. And actually, Russ and I talked about this on the phone not too long ago. But I think ownership in the NFL in general is just trying to take over more control. I feel like they feel like they've given too much control to some of these front office personnel or coaches, and they feel like they don't have enough control of their organization. And I get that. I totally get that. For me, the Packer
Well, the
way,
one thing that Elliott said that kind of, I'm not going to say completely, but kind of put that argument to rest was there's one person making that selection, and that person is going to be me.
And I love that. I love that because we're adults. So it's like, don't like piss on my head and tell me it's raining. Yes, it's a collaborative process. If it's a collaborative between me, you, and Russ, okay, to pick a player. Okay, but if I want, I don't know, I don't know. If we all want 3 different guys, who's going to be the one who's making the final decision? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I'm glad that he said that because it's like, it's okay. I understood Bill's, kind of keeping things behind closed doors mentality, and I respect it. But at the same time, at some point there need to be certain answers. And I felt like there were a couple of times that, I felt like he would have been better off addressing, Ross, you distracted me, bud. Yes, you get final call. Okay. Damn it, Russ. Okay, you got me all. Okay, let's get back on the rails here. I just feel like at some point he would have been better off just flat out addressing it head on, black and white up front. And I don't know what we'll get. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool, and also I'm going to use the word jarring only because I'm young enough where Bill's tenure really was my entire an adult football fanhood. But I thought it was really weird to see Gerard sit down at the table and just rattle off 20 questions in 10 minutes and just answer everything straight up. And I was like, this is really weird. It was really weird for me. I don't know. I thought it was odd.
And I went back and actually in the dynasty, Bill was a lot more forthcoming then. You see some of his early press conferences and he's answering a lot of questions. Now, he still played things very close to the vest, but I thought he was a lot more forthcoming in his early years. And I think after they won the 3 Super Bowls, that he started to pull back even more,
Mm-hmm. I think that it was just, I think it's easier that way in some respects, but I also think it makes it harder too. And then, he gets annoyed by certain things or narratives or storylines or whatever. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's what the cloud of mystery will also create questions, but anyway, I that's a kind of a separate issue, but I just thought it was really weird to see Gerard, doing the press conference. Not that there was anything wrong. I just thought it was weird for me personally. That's it. No,
well, it's just different.
It was just very different. And, but going back to Elliott's thing, drafting and developing, I love that. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, it's going to be how successful are they, at doing that. And, I thought that there's the interesting conversation. I keep thinking of storylines about this to go with topics. I think that the interesting conversation is best player available versus also what this team needs right now. Because you could make the case that Marvin Harrison Jr., for example, is the best player in this draft class.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think you could make a pretty strong case. There's a very good chance he is going to be there at 3. At the same time, the most important position is quarterback. And you could also make the case that there are a couple of quarterbacks who could be in the conversation for best player in the class, or like I said, just in the conversation for it. But if you look at the Packers, it's first round is typically quarterback, offensive line, edge rusher, corner, kind of I would say 4 of your probably biggest foundational pieces on a football team. And then second and third rounds are typically more, skill-based, positions, receivers, running backs, tight ends. And if you look at the Packers, how they're built now, that would be the same way. Jordan Love, quarterback, first round. They have, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, both drafted. Christian Watson was second round. Dobbs was a little bit later. Luke Musgrave, I think, was a second rounder. Tyler Kroft was like a third rounder or fourth rounder. If you go through how they built their team, and I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but there are parallels to how they did that. And I think that there's going to be a lot of parallels for how the Patriots are going to rebuild this roster. And I think they're looking at it, Steve, overall, Gerard and Elliott. I mean, when I say they, I think because those two right now are absolutely I respect Russ's opinion, and I definitely feel I can see his storyline of where the Crafts are. But at the end of the day, I still think it's Elliott Wolf and Gerard May are running the ship, and it's not the Crafts. I'm sure Jonathan has a hand in a lot of things, though. But I do think that they're looking at it, Steve, as truly an organizational revamp, and they're trying to rebuild this entire thing down, from the ground up. And that's why I think they're looking at okay, we got to start basically from scratch here. How do we do that? And I still believe that they're going to take a quarterback high up, because I still think they're looking at we need to put asses in seats. We don't want to see our tickets being compared to the Carolina Panthers, ticket prices. Okay. We don't want to see half empty stadiums as we lose to the Jets, or anything like that. But it's just I think they need a face of the franchise. They're needing to rebrand. They're needing, to start from the bottom up. And that's what they're talking about doing right now. And they're figuring out who's going to be our foundational players on this roster. And I think you're going to see massive, massive roster overhaul this offseason.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think, Miguel has the Miguel Benzon, everyone knows as Pat's cap. He's the most accurate one when it comes to the Patriots salary cap. And he has them at $86.9 million right now. If they release J.C. Jackson, that will leave them.
I would say it's a when, not an if, in my opinion.
Right.
But,
well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It would be $100.4 million, which is an enormous amount of money to spend. So not only could they re-sign some of their pending free agents like Michael Wenyu, Kyle Duggar, rework Matthew Judon's deal to keep him around another couple of years. Now you have a lot of your and there's other free agents, but they won't break the bank. You still have plenty of money to go out and be players in free agency.
I mean, big time players though too. I think that there is I think there's a chance they sign a big contract on both sides of the football and also keep a Mike and Wenyu, because that would ultimately be, the best thing for them, is to supplement some of their kind of, supplement the rebuild a little bit with veteran players, right? You want to be building through the draft, but you needed to supplement it. Elliott said that as much. But as we talked about on the phone the other day, when you're a team without a quarterback coming off let's just call it what it is, a crappy year, you're going to have to pay guys. This isn't South Beach. It's not LA. Okay, you're playing in Foxborough. You don't have a quarterback right now. You have a first-time coach. You're drafting at the top of the draft for a reason. You're going to have to pay guys more money flat out if you're going to get them to come play. And look, and that's how it works. And once they get good again, if they can draft Drake May or Jaden Daniels, and they turn out to be a stud quarterback, it'll be a lot easier to get guys to come play with you once that happens. But right now, the stock evaluation is a little low, and that's why I think that they're going to spend a lot of money this offseason to support their first-time head coach and get people more excited, because I think people right now are really interested in the team, Steve, because of all the changes and the tenure changes. But I think that if Bill was still here, I think it would be an absolute ghost town. Like, I don't think we'd have as many live viewers as we have right now, or how many downloads we get later if we were if we were just sitting with Bill coming off the season, because I think people would just be like, well, I'm sure he'll draft another guard in the first round and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, with $100 million, they can make a couple of really big signings and still retain some of their guys, like I said earlier, that aren't going to break the bank, that are up for re-signing. I think they should make every effort to re-sign Anthony Jennings and a couple of other guys.
Yep.
And
that was your best call of the year, by the way. Of all the takes you had on the show throughout the year, Anthony Jennings, I think, was your best take last year.
Well, I was high on him when they drafted him.
No, we both liked him when we were drafted, but then I was done with him. I was ready to cut him, and you're like, I think you're selling him short here. And I've never had to admit this, but I was wrong. So, but I do think, man, I just think that it'd be really interesting to see how they want to build the team, and like even just like Anthony Jennings, like look at Josh Uche even. He's a free agent. What if Gerard Mayo looks at him and was like, Bill, the way Bill wanted to play defense is not we're going to use some of the similar things, but we want to play a totally different style of defense. And Josh Uche is the perfect fit. Like I've written Josh Uche off as gone. Like I figured I'm like, you are a Jaguar, or whatever. Like, I don't know. But like, I'm like, I don't know. And I like even that, you forget the drafting, when what we're looking for players. What is the defense going to look like? What kind of offense do they want to play? What kind of player do they want to? There's so many questions, Steve, regarding the team. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm really excited about free agency, because that's going to drive the train of how they approach the draft. If they hit a home run in free agency and sign some big name players, which they have the ability to go out and do that, then, the draft is going to be really intriguing. And I still think they're going to take a quarterback at 3.
I still do too.
I don't see them not doing that. I think, one of those 3 guys is going to be there. Most people are saying Caleb Williams will be the first guy off the board. And, people could be wrong. Chicago might not even take him. You know what I mean?
I think I would say I would pretty much bet my life the Commanders take a quarterback at 2. I still think the Bears I could absolutely see them trading out or taking Marvin Harrison. I just expect them to draft Caleb Williams, and but that's the Patriots could even trade up to the first round, to the first overall pick if they really, if the Bears aren't gonna, if they're sticking with Justin Fields and they want Marvin Harrison Jr., they could absolutely go from 1 to 3 and still get that guy. I think that depending on if the packages are similar between the Commanders and the Patriots, I mean, they probably go to 3 because I think there's a good chance the Patriots are worse than the Commanders next year. I mean, potentially on paper right now. I mean, it's early, but if you go through that whole process, it's interesting. I don't know, but I mean, either way, Steve. I mean, I still see them taking a quarterback at 3, and I think based on Elliott's background, I think that it would be Joe Alt, not Marvin Harrison Jr., if it wasn't a quarterback.
That could very well be.
But then again, that's what the interesting kind of line of like delineation is, because it's like, okay, best player available, positional value, like there's a lot of kind of blurred lines that with that whole conversation. We're going to pick this up. We're just going to take a quick break for podcast purposes, and we'll be back right after this. All right, and we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri here. We have been pretty much talking about Wolf's comments at the Combine, and man, so many different directions again that we can go, from this. Michael writes in on Twitter, I hope all his best player talk this far means we're taking someone other than a quarterback. The USC kid is worthy of a high selection. The others will be QB room floaters after the rookie deal. I mean, some people feel that way, Michael. I mean, some people do. I mean, I feel like, Jaden Daniels was a probably early day 3 draft pick prior to the season. Like, he was probably like a 4th round pick. And he had a great season, and people are really worried about, Drake May. He has a big arm, but his release isn't, he's a little inconsistent. His release is a little slow. So it's like, there's ups and downs for all these guys. I think people are worried about Caleb Williams, for a lot of different reasons. I'm not sure they're the right reasons, but I think people are worried about Caleb Williams. But, even the storyline, I don't know if you saw this, Steve, Marvin Harrison Jr. talking about how he's not training for the combine. He's just training for football, and he's not changing what he's doing. He's like, yeah, I'm not working out. Like, I'm not working out, at the combine or getting ready for that. I have football to train for, and he's just staying consistent. And I thought a lot of people were like, oh, wow, that's cool. And some of the GMs were like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I think if it was Caleb Williams who said that, I think people would be losing their minds because they were upset he cried in the stands to his mom, so so who knows? I mean, it could go all over the place. Anything else from Elliot's comments that stood out to you that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on most of them, but he did mention the quarterback is. Let me see if I can find that quote real quick.
All right, while you look for, while you look for that quote, if you can find it.
Yep.
You got it, or you made a filibuster
here
for a second?
When you look throughout the league, most of the quarterbacks are first rounders. Wolf said. I think there's exceptions to be had, but the league-wide understanding of how important that position is and how important it is to have somebody there that can help you win games and get over the hump has changed league-wide. And he added
absolutely.
that he thinks it's a really good year for quarterbacks. And he said that what impressed him was that, they all look like really tough guys, meaning physically and mentally. So
interesting.
And
I mean, and there's, like I said, there's pros and cons to all these guys. I'm just getting a little tired of the narrative of look, I like Drake May. I know a lot of people don't for certain reasons, but if you want to tell me you don't like Drake May because he had a down year in his last year in a bad conference, I'd say, okay, just don't tell me it's because, well, there's never been a good quarterback from North Carolina before. Pound sand. How many good quarterbacks were there at Texas Tech before Patrick Mahomes came out? It's like, I mean, come on. Like CJ, what was the narrative over Ohio State, about CJ Stroud? And look at the year he just had. So anyone who's listening, I love I want to hear different. I'm not trying to sound condescending. I'm not, or anything like that. I love the draft banter talk. I want to hear people's opinions on all that. Just don't tell me that, that Jaden Daniels, how many quarterbacks came from ASU and Jaden Daniels is too thin. You can, if you want to tell me he's too thin and you're worried about the hits he takes because he's a little reckless as a runner, then fine. Just like, I feel like the narrative around some of these quarterbacks, Steve, is kind of ridiculous. But I think that the focus is on the quarterbacks because, as Elliot said, as you read the comments, it's the most important position. I mean, and there's a ton of quarterback talent in the league right now, but if you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to get to where you want to go, and I just think right now it's so important for them to find, that next guy, and what the fallout will be from that, I don't know. But I just think that if they can somehow keep Onwenu and maybe they spend some money on a veteran receiver, Steve, you can really focus on quarterback and then tackle at their next pick. And I really do think that's the right move. The more I've thought about it with the depth, I mean, there's a lot of really good receivers that I'm sure when we talk about it, you and I will both agree on some really cool receivers in that 34 range, but it's also a really deep class, and you can get some good players in that third round to fill that role. And there's so many good tackles coming out, and right now there's just such bad offensive line play around the league that you need to keep your own. You need to keep your guy Mike Onwenu, and you need to try to secure another tackle as a starting tackle at 34, and I really think that would be the way to go. The more I've thought about it.
Well, I'm glad you made that point, because I was going to ask you a question.
Sure.
And I'm not writing this in sand or anything. It's just throwing something at the wall. If they take a quarterback at 3, which we both believe they're going to try to do, what if they didn't take a tackle in the second round or a wide receiver, but drafted a tight end? My question would be Jatavion Sanders.
I love him.
Yeah.
I mean, he it makes a lot of sense. I mean, to me, if anyone hasn't seen Jatavion Sanders, the Texas tight end, I would check him out. He is pretty highly regarded as this, I would say, consensus second tight end in the class behind Bowers. And I think that in Alex Van Pelt's offense, and tight end's important. And like you and I talked about on the phone the other day, we've said it like 60 times, but we talk on the phone a lot. As we talked about the other day, people aren't talking about tight end enough. Like, they're not. There's no tight end on the roster right now, 0. And not that they can't keep. Not that they can't retain Henry, Gesicki, or Farrell Brown, but I don't think it's crazy to, discuss tight end in that second round. I think that needs to be higher up in the conversation. Everyone focuses on quarterback, receiver, and tackle. Well, I think tight end and edge rusher and corner are close, but I just think people are just like, okay, can we just fix the freaking offense? It's been broken for years. So, and I'm about that too. I would pay veterans on defense and keep that defense strong, because it's a pretty good unit. I would supplement, your corner, your edge rushers with veterans, Steve, and I would just dump every draft asset into offense and just try to pump in new blood. You already have a new coaching staff, new philosophies. Get yourself a new quarterback, get yourself some new weapons, and just flip this thing, because the offense has been really bad pretty much since they won their last Super Bowl. I mean, they had some good time the first half of Brady's last year, but it really fell apart. And I mean, you're trading second round draft picks for Mohamed Sanu. I'm still upset about it 5 years later.
Yeah, that one didn't work out,
Hey, they're not all winners.
Yeah. But no, I just, I've been thinking about, because you and I have talked about that countless times since the season ended. And most people have him going early in the second round. And I was like, there's going to be still good receivers in the third and fourth round. And there's going to be some good tackles still in the third round. If they were to, in free agency, get a Onwenu back, maybe sign a guy like Pittman, now your wide receivers are starting to look better already. Not saying they're complete, but they're looking better. And maybe sign another guy. And then you come into the draft, and the second round, Sanders is sitting there, and I'm like, boy, that guy could be a playmaker in Van Pelt's system, which, thrives on, having the tight end as a big time weapon. So that's why I was curious. I just wanted to throw that out there to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think it's important, and that I just think people are just not talking about tight end enough. To me, I think it's a huge need. And I think that, Hunter Henry would be great to keep, but I don't know if he wants to stay, if he wants to go, if he wants to play for a contender. I don't know what he thinks he's going to get on the open market. I don't know. I think there was a player on the Browns that played in an AVP system that's a free agent who I I didn't love, but I like coming out of University of Washington, which is Harrison Bryant. I think he's someone who I'd keep in the back of my mind for free agency. I I would be surprised if they went tight end at 34, but I wouldn't be shocked. And I've said this 100 times, and I still will until the draft comes and goes. But I really would. I like the idea of them either moving up from 34 to the 20s to secure a tackle, or I like the idea for moving from the 3rd round pick up into the 2nd round. Like if let's say Sanders falls to like the midway of the 2nd round, when you've already taken Drake May and I don't know, a tackle at 34, whatever.
Paul,
like
maybe
if Sanders
from
is still there,
Houston.
Go get him, man.
Yeah.
Huh?
Paul from Houston.
Yep. Paul from Houston is a good player. Someone like that. Like go get him. Like I'm hoping I want them to be aggressive this offseason. It has to be calculated, but I want them to be aggressive because they needed an aggressive remodel, and they made an aggressive move firing the best coach of all time. So you might not like the fact, like I know there are a lot of people who don't like that Bill's gone. And I told you about this. I was torn because I love Bill. I'm still sad that he's not the coach in a lot of different ways. I also was pissed because it's been a couple of years of like really just they're not a good product, continuous mistakes, and it was just like, okay, like they need to shake it up. And as the saying goes, if you're going to be a Bear, be a Grizzly. They made the choice to move on from him. So I'm hoping they're aggressive, and their new vision is time will tell. We'll be sitting here in a couple of years and we'll be saying that it was some great moves or some bad moves, but they need to be calculated in how they're moving and then be aggressive and go for it because they need the radical shakeup, and they've already started that. They've already kind of started that, and I'm just kind of curious where it goes from here.
So am I, my friend. I mean, that's why I'm excited about it, because it's all unknown and we don't know how it's going to work out. And, you have, like you said, if you're going to be a Bear, be a Grizzly, not Yogi,
Yeah. And we're a little less than 6 days from franchise tag deadline. It doesn't sound like they're gonna franchise tag anyone. It seems like I don't expect it. Do you expect anybody at this point?
I don't know. I mean, he said it's not out of play.
Yeah, he said it's not out of play.
So, it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure they're going to be having conversations with Owenu and Duggar, and maybe if they're too far apart, that they'll just play the franchise tag for this year and then see what, blah blah, what falls next year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also think it's interesting too that Michael Owenu fired his agents. So is he? I mean, does he know? I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen, but let's say that he thinks that there's a chance he's going to get tagged. Why the hell am I giving you 5%? There's nothing to negotiate. They just tagged me. I'm not giving you 5% of whatever whatever his tag number would be. I don't know. I can't imagine he's going to go into free agency and talk to teams without an agent role. But I know that some players have in the past. Teddy Bruschi, I don't believe, had an agent. Eddie Reed always represented himself. I mean, I just find that kind of as an interesting wrinkle to the entire thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's all part of the package, what's going on right now. And, maybe, well, I don't know, because Anthony Jennings fired his agent too.
Yeah.
I think maybe some of these guys just, they want to start fresh and they want a fresh voice in there to represent them.
By the way, did you get a chance? if you haven't heard it, I'll send you. Maybe I should send you the link. Did you hear Steve Belichick on the Greenlight podcast from Chris Long?
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was an awesome interview. I love Chris Long.
Yeah.
As a total aside, I just think he is just a cool dude, and I love his analysis. I think he does a really good job. His podcast, I don't listen to it all the time. I download it. And I'll check it out. I'll check out some things, but he had a really cool conversation with Steve Belichick, who was just singing the praises out of Anthony Jennings. And I thought that was cool. Steve's talking about, he's like, well, some people tell me I sound like my dad. I'm like, you literally sound exactly like Bill.
It's amazing how much he sounds like his dad.
It's crazy.
If you were listening to that podcast and you weren't watching it.
Yeah, and you didn't know who was talking, you would thought it was like Bill. You were like, hey, Bill sounds kind of young. Look at that. It was cool. Let's end it with this one, Steve. Thoughts on the Patriots Dynasty doc so far? We're 4 episodes in. So before we say anything, if you haven't seen it yet, please dismiss the rest of the show. Okay. But thanks for listening. And come back when you're done watching it. But give me your thoughts on the Dynasty doc so far, Steve.
I was really disappointed in the last episode because whatever episode it was, either the third or the fourth, they kind of glossed over 2 Super Bowl winning teams.
And a 21-game win streak.
Yes. And I wrote about that in my Sunday column.
Yes, which, by the way, I want to give you kudos.
They didn't even mention the 21-game winning streak. And they showed Adam Vinatieri kicking the winning field goal in Super Bowl 38 against Carolina, and they showed Rodney Harrison, with the interception against the Eagles. But I think they spent maybe 20 seconds on it, on those 2 Super Bowl winning teams. I thought that was really poor. I mean, the whole thing is the dynasty, right? Well, that's what made them a dynasty, was those 2 wins, not the first one, you know? And I just thought that was really poor. I was very disappointed with that.
I've been disappointed with the entire documentary so far. We're only 40% in, so there's 6 episodes left, and it could take a turn. I just feel like I don't love how and there was a report about this. I didn't see where the report originated. I was super busy at work yesterday, and I stopped somewhere to grab a bite to eat, and I saw it on a TV that, Colin Cowherd said the Bill was pissed about how he was coming off and portrayed in the documentary. And I think it was weird. It was, there was a ton of time on the Tom and Drew thing, which I felt like was necessary to spend time on 100% because it was a ballsy call. I thought that, there was like the lawyer Malloy angle. Like I thought that was kind of glossed over. I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, Bill basically was like, yeah, lawyer, like you're a really good player, but I think Rodney Harrison's better. And went out and got him, and that was kind of a move. The second and third Super Bowls were glossed over. The win streak, I don't know. I'm hoping it's going to get better. To me, so far, I just have been underwhelmed.
Yeah, the one part that I did like in the last episode was they got Michael Strahan's perspective on that Super Bowl against the Giants.
Yeah. And
I really like that, even though it's a painful subject for all of us. Mm-hmm. But, having him on there, I thought was awesome. And, it was great hearing his thoughts. And I love the way it ended with him. We slayed the devil, but we realized the devil wasn't dead. You know? And I thought that was a great way to end it. But overall, there's some great stuff in there. I like hearing back from some of the players. I loved hearing Randy Moss when he said, I'm a bad MFer too. Dante Stallworth, that was good.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it wasn't all. I'm not saying it wasn't all good. There were just parts that upset me. that they,
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels, and we said this the other day on the phone, it feels like it was put out a little too early. And because Bill, sorry about that, my dog just started chewing on my chair. So.
Well, they're portraying Bill as a villain in a lot of this.
Right.
I mean, even though they kept saying Bill was right about the Bledsoe thing, but they're still painting him in a bad light, you know?
And that to me is really annoying because it felt like the Crafts were taking a lot of like victory laps for buying the team and saving the team, which they should. They deserve their flowers. But a lot of decisions that were made early on, they gave Bill the ability to make the call, and he was pretty much perfect on his decisions throughout like the first 4 or 5 seasons he had. I mean, there were struggles. I'm not saying that, but like big time critical decisions he did. And that's why I don't like, the Kraft Sports production influence on it. And Todd actually right on the money, as usual, times in who produced it. Yeah, exactly. And that to me is why it's just a little tainted. I think Bill doesn't want to be disrespectful to the Crafts, but I'm sure he's feeling upset by it. And as you told me the other day, as you said, I think it was either you or Ian, that basically was like, and Bill, is not retired yet. He's not out of the league. So it's like hard for him to say certain things. If he was like totally done and retired, I mean, he might just go Bill Parcells, scorched earth, and then we got a real good series there. You know what I mean? But I do think that the Kraft influence on it, Steve, to me has been telling so far. You can feel it.
I mean, and it seems like Kraft is begrudgingly saying after the fact, well, Bill was right, but I didn't want him because I like Drew and I paid Drew all that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Todd goes, when are we getting to Giselle?
Yeah. Oh my God. Did you see the report today?
I did. Jesus.
Yeah.
Is this an on-air conversation? I mean, I guess it could be, but.
But anyway.
Fellas, if Tom Brady can be cheated on, so can you. So I don't know.
That's the comments I've seen like 300 times. So.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mewant that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. We want to get to Giselle. Is like we totally glossed over Tom Brady, having Tara Reid out with him drinking, dancing on tables at bars. I mean, that was that would now there's a home video that would have been interesting. But yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm excited. I'm still excited to see the next episodes. Okay. I still want to see how it plays out. And I definitely think it could get better. I just don't like the Kraft angle of it. Don't like Bill's portrayal of it. I don't like on some of the things they're focusing on and some of the things they totally glossed over. But I understand there's a build, and I'm really, really curious to see the end of it. I know that I heard Jim Murray from 98.5. Basically, he's seen the entire thing, and he thought, I think he thinks he kind of imply without saying it that it got pretty juicy, towards the end. And I'm sure there's more drama at the end.
Oh my God! Yeah. I mean, well, we got Aaron Hernandez coming up, so
yeah, which is wild. I mean, that whole situation. I can literally remember where I was watching him get walked out of the house by the detectives in his white shirt with his hands behind his back and his red basketball shorts. Like I still can't believe that entire storyline. It's literally unbelievable.
And Russ saw him at the gas station.
Yeah, and even Ernie. I think there was from the story coming up, from the episode coming up about it. I think Ernie. There was a quote. He said something to the effect of like, if he was a Seahawk, things might have ended up differently. But we didn't think he was gonna. I mean, of course, I hate people who like bring that up. They're like, oh, they drafted a murderer. Like no one would have thought that was going to happen. But in hindsight, they look at it and they were like, well, he's only 2 hours from Bristol, and there's a lot of people in Bristol that were not a good influences. And Todd said, holy crap. Todd said, I delivered mail to the house in Bristol where the SUV was hidden. That's wild, Todd. That's awesome that you did that. That's cool. That's a cool little nugget there. But I mean, yeah. I think they realized in hindsight separating him more from Bristol would have been a bigger, better for him personally, and just, I mean, really crazy. So, anyway, Steve, we should wrap though. Any final thoughts you have? Anything on Elliott Wolf? Anything on the draft in general?
No, I just want to say that I think this was the first where Russ actually had you, a little discombobulated there. So,
well, he's sitting here. I was gonna say, you got me all flustered because he's talking about the Patriots. I can see him working up in the comments, working up a ladder. He's getting all frustrated with the situation. And I get it. I appreciate the passion, though. I mean, he's pissed. I mean, he didn't want Bill to go, and I know you feel the same way. I didn't really want it to go, but I wanted them to make changes, and they did it. So we'll see if the devil is better than the devil you don't, I guess.
Exactly.
As far as next week goes, real quick for people listening, I'm going on vacation with my wife next week, so that'll be fun. And I talked about maybe bringing my microphone to the beach, but I don't know if that's going to fly with the wife, so we'll see. But we'll probably take next week off, and then we'll return after that. The week we get back, Steve, we'll line up a schedule for our prospect breakdown, but we're going to start really shifting to. There's going to be obviously a lot to talk about from the combine this week, which is really sucks why I won't be able to be to talk about it, but we'll play catch up a little bit on that. We're going to have to go through all our prospects, and obviously we'll touch on topics as we go, but we'll start breaking down some of the prospects. Got to start with the quarterbacks up at the top. And I'm excited to get into this, Steve. It's always a fun time learning about some of these guys coming out. You and I have had some really good hits on players, had a couple misses, of course. But I think on balance, we try to stay, balanced in our analysis. And it'd be cool to see. It'll be cool to see where we kind of line up, because I would say on the whole, you and I are usually relatively aligned. So I'll be curious to see how that all works out when we start going through guys. All right.
It's been a collaborative effort between us.
Drink. All right. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Patriots 4th and 2. Derek Haven, Steve Balestrieri. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. And we will see you guys next week. Or 2 weeks from now. Sorry.